this idea of colonization and how we are building our mindsets, our frameworks with the wrong Lego pieces, because the Lego pieces are loaded, new generations of Latin American thinkers who are deconstructing the system through the language and through political action and through social action.
So I know the literature, but because I can't speak Spanish, I can't access the literature.
Brazilian, Portuguese.
So now I try and learn Spanish. But also the same in the USA is not all bad, right?
Yeah.
There are some very powerful women in the USA. Nancy Fraser, for example, who talks about different publics, weak and strong publics, which has been very influential. But also, what's her name? Bell Hooks, who talks about intersectionality, and the black feminist movement they're doing exactly that. The other woman is a lawyer, can't remember her name. It's in my presentation. But she started by looking at the law and how the law is defining women in particular ways because of the wideness of the feminist movement. So the black feminist movement, I think, is trying to do the same thing, and will be really interested to access that Spanish literature.
The interesting idea about the South epistemologies is that they focus on knowledge construction, and feminism too, obviously, and they consider feminism part of their own way of rethinking knowledge construction. And I think it is really, really powerful and important. But now, the problem not with language, but languages.
Yes.
They are publishing in Spanish or Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, and they are publishing out of the system.
Yes, absolutely, that's right. Because the system actually is very powerfully, we were talking, very powerfully controlled by the USA. You know, the journals are, the way the journals operate is driven by the US academic system. So, you know, it's not the individuals that are to blame. I'm not, you know, it's the system that is the problem. And I know that the UK and Europe has a dark history of colonialism, but the US colonialism is different. It is about knowledge, the way we think, in a very powerful way now.
US and UK.
And US and the UK, but the UK just takes, we take what the Americans, we take what comes out. So our university performance management system now has come from the USA.
But
We're being colonized, we deserve it.
In Europe, Latin countries don't have that.
No, there is this.
We are the minorities.
Then there's France, which is different, and Scandinavia, yeah. But I think this is really important, this colonization of ideas and knowledge, and the unpacking of it.
And the evidence-based movement is an equally big part of the system that is now so powerful that it's difficult to deconstruct the negative aspects of it, because it's reductionist, so it actually throws all the useful knowledge out of the system. But it is a useful systematic approach, so I believe in the principles, but we need to deconstruct that and understand what knowledge we need in order to do the right thing. So, but interesting when you talked about it's the system, not the individuals, but earlier you said the individuals are made up of the system, so we can change the system if we get to the right individuals. But
yes, because look at what Cochrane did, you know. But he didn't do it on his own, did he? He gave people an idea, and they went with that idea. But it was really important, I think, that they were medics, because they were able to use the power of the medical profession to push that idea. If Archie Cochrane had been a feminist sociologist, we wouldn't have the Cochrane collaboration. Because, no, we wouldn't, because there was not enough power to push that evidence thing through.
So it comes back to power.
It's all about power. But that's a very complicated concept.
It is. Not one we're going to solve today.
No, on the beach.
More questions, Fernando?
May I add another issue about evidence? evidence as defined in health is based on peer review. What could happen if instead of peer reviewed, assuming that peer is empowered people who are positioned by the system to be peers, we changed our way of thinking and moved to a blockchain framework. The blockchain technology is a very easy, a very low-profile technology, but the framework, the mindset is totally different. You have people mining data, not because they have been positioned by the system through a curriculum-based ladder, but because their capacity to mine data. Perhaps we could move to an evidence-based blockchain system in which the relationships of power are challenged. It's not those people who are part of the system, but people who have the capability to mine data, which is another way of saying the capability to say something.
I definitely agree, Fernando, that actually it's timely to think about how we might reconstruct an evidence base. If we still want to use that language, we might want to use a different word. One of the benefits of using the principles of evidence-based medicine and evidence-based practice is the ability to eliminate bias from the knowledge that is generated. So we'd have to find a way of doing that that's in principle similar to the way we do it with randomized control trials, but is not constrained by a methodology as such, in terms of making sure that the perspectives are brought together in a way that actually, you have consensus about what the right thing to do is. We still have to deal with bias because even experts who are engaged in evidence-based public health through systematic review have biases that may be the wrong thing, may tell us the wrong thing to do. I mean, that's one of the good things about a nice process, is that it actually brings together a whole range of different stakeholders together to bring together a solution to its evidence-based decision-making, which is not only based on scientific research, whether that be quantitative or qualitative, but it's based through a process. So, but I think it's timely to rethink what an alternative evidence-based movement might look like.
Yeah, the thing about peer review that's really, I mean, when I talk about practical wisdom, lay knowledge, the knowledge of daily life, sometimes people listening to me will say, well, they're not always right. And my response is, the question is not are they right or wrong, but what's the logic? Why are they saying what they are saying? Where does that come from? And if you can understand the logic, then you can engage in a debate and discussion, which is what that part of the NICE process does. It brings in a particular kind of research evidence, which is problematic. But what that method does do is attempt to eliminate a particular kind of bias, which is that which might result in the wrong, in a false conclusion from that method, by the sample being problematic, too small, too big, that kind of thing. But it's in the dialogue, it's dialogic, where you find an agreed, potentially, maybe not total consensus, but an agreed way forward. So I don't think any of the different forms of knowledge is right or wrong, except maybe in the clinical world where there's a drug and you've got 30 trials, you put them together and they're all saying, don't use this drug because it will kill people, But in the social world and the economic world, the world of health promotion, where these different knowledges are combined, I think we're into a dialogical framework for assessing evidence, assessing knowledges, and reaching some kind of agreed way forward. And the problem so far has been that dialogue has excluded, generally excludes people who wear the shoes.
Any more questions? ¿Una pregunta en español también? Por dar la nota latina. ¿No? Pues sí. La nota latina, gracias.
Y no sé si habrán pensado en poner esos ideales como en un libro que sirva de guía para las personas como nosotros, que después podamos ir concentrándonos en eso, como de construir lo que nos interesa a ustedes.
Have you thought about bringing all these ideas together into a book or into a guide for someone who are learning to have everything together? No,
He
the
writes the
ideology.
I don't write books, you know.
She will tell him.
It'd be much easier for me. Do you know, I can't give the time to write. I have my guitar, I have my Spanish lesson, and I have my ideas, my thinking, I'm working on my research. What is easier is talking, is actually maybe using a different medium, is talking about it, rather than, you know, writing books, an audio book.
I'm interested in books.
Yeah.
Serious.
Yes, serious. I love books, I love reading.
Yeah.
But writing.
Maybe this will turn into a series. Maybe it's not famous.
Television.
You can be YouTubers.
Yes.
Oh,
My series 10 will be all speaking Spanish.
Influencers.
First of all, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. And I have a question about language. In TV, there's this Dr. Maturana that said language creates reality, I think. And like, don't you think that you are two people that have power? Like, you're not presidents of stuff, but you have a small amount of power. So when you speak and when you say things, you are creating something like in each one of us and with the communities you're working with. So have you, like as person, have you thought of changing these words that you are talking about? Like, for example, if you say knowledge, I think that more people will think that they do have it. But if you say evidence, like if I go to a community and I say, hey, you've got power because you are evidence and you have evidence, they're not going to get what I'm saying. But if you go and say you have the knowledge and you have the power, maybe that creates something. Like, have you as individuals thought of how to change the world with your own languages?
So in terms of language, I always said that, just using the example of assets, if it helps us change things for the common good, let's just use that phrase, because I think we've got an idea of what it means, then it's useful to use. If it's not useful, then it's exclusive. So if the word evidence excludes people because they don't, because when my perception or my idea of evidence in my head is knowledge.
Yeah.
But I use evidence because that's where I came from. And I'm willing to change that word to knowledge if it makes sense to more people.
Yeah.
So, and that's for me, it's a willingness to change to make sure that everybody understands what you're talking about. If people don't understand it, don't get it, or are not willing to do something positive with it, it's the wrong word to change it. So, but again, that's when you have to change the mindsets, because we have a system or a tradition which is really solely focused on evidence, which means different things to different people, but for most people it means hard quantitative science. That is exactly what we can do. We can achieve if we invest in asset-based approaches. So it's difficult, but I think going back to what Jenny's suggestion was, is making sure at the very least be explicit about the ideology and the principles upon what you're saying and why you're using that language. That's the least we can do.
It also partly implicit in what Anthony's just said, that it partly depends who you're speaking to. Yeah. So I'm more likely to use knowledge than evidence. But I will use evidence when I'm talking to people who I know will think I'm really odd if I talk about evidence and knowledge rather than evidence, because they think that I don't understand.
Yeah.
So if I'm talking to if I gave a lecture to the Cochrane collaboration, and then I talked about evidence, because they would think, if I talked about knowledge all the time, they really would think I didn't understand who they were or where they were coming from. So I think you have to be.
You have to play the game.
You just play the game sometimes, yeah. But I think you are right, and I spend more time now talking to non-policy audiences, non-academic audiences, I suppose another reason why I don't write the papers anymore, because it just feels like a more useful way to spend my time to share than to do the academic. But I don't have to because I'm old enough to not, And if the university doesn't like it, what are they going to do? They're going to sack me? I've already got my pension. Whereas he hasn't.
But now I just go to fashion shows, you see, and use a completely different language.
Okay, thank you very much. So, si os parece, tiramos un poquito con Pi y después Jenny va a seguir hablando. Jenny will keep on talking a bit about language and Rafa and Jenny afterwards.